All right.
Hello.
All right.
Yep.
Just so you all know, we did test this and it was working perfect before we went on. All right. I think we're ready to go. Good morning, everyone. All right. All right, Martin, let's start all over. So before we get into the questions, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your flower story?
About myself and the flower story. Well,
Yes.
I was born almost in the greenhouse. My father was a grower. So I didn't want to be a grower, so I joined with a neighbor. He was selling houseplants on a market in Amsterdam. That's how I got in the auction. And then after my service in the military, I worked for a couple of exporters. I was a Flying Dutchman in Manhattan and on Long Island for close to a year. And after that, I was 2.5 years together with my wife in Connecticut, and we were working in a wholesale company as Dutch importer, selling to mid-size wholesalers and wholesalers who couldn't import themselves. We did it for a couple of years. Then we went back, we moved back, started a family, worked for a couple of companies, and then started my own business in 1993. And here I am. We only do exports by plane, only air shipments. So we're stuck now with the airlines with the freight. Yeah, well, it's an exciting business, and every day is still new, and every day, it's a new challenge, especially in times like this. It's a challenge.
Indeed, it is a challenge. And speaking of a challenge, I know you've sent over a lot of really great information. You sent over some new numbers this morning, and we did have a question from Bruce that was sent in for a previous show, but I think it still relates to here, and just wanting to know if we can estimate the drop in order volume since the pandemic began. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I spoke to a grower this morning, and he says, like in his end of the business, like the wholesale end in Europe, there's probably a drop down of like 70-75%.
Right.
Like the retail, like the supermarkets, and that they're doing better. I mean, they're open and they're running their programs. There was a little dip the last couple of weeks, but that's getting back on track more. But at least it's way down in Europe. In our end of the business, it has been a rocky couple of weeks. I mean, business starts up again. We do some other markets as well, other than the United States. The United States is just starting to import a little bit through Miami because of all the logistic companies there. So that's starting off, and we're getting decent orders, and it looks like people are getting kind of back on track, or trying to. In Europe, we're also getting back on track. Life is getting a little bit more normal. When you go to the grocery shop now, people are getting a little grumpy because they have to wait. You got to keep your 5 foot or 6 foot distance. And I mean, there was patience in the last couple of weeks, but that's disappearing. So we're getting used to the new normal. Right. I think, it's also the number of death because the virus is going down. I mean, it looks like we have good control over it in Holland. I mean, the government is very clear on what to do. And everybody is keeping the 5 foot distance. It took a while before it sank in with everybody, but everybody's doing it now, and it feels okay. I mean, you've got to be careful with what you do, and you can have bad luck with touching something, or a doorknob, or whatever you can touch, and get the virus anyway. But I think we're on a good track here, and the government is talking now about maybe taking some measurements of getting back to a new normal. Like, if maybe kids can go back to school, they're thinking about it. Maybe more businesses can open. Maybe they're going to open, I don't know, but, maybe they're thinking about the restaurant business, maybe, keeping, instead of 50 people or 100 people, maybe allow 50 people inside.
Right.
So, yeah, we're in the progress of getting a new normal. It's going to take a long time before everything is back to what it was. But, what are you going to do?
Right.
You gotta go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, so you're talking a little bit about like life in general. Can we talk a little bit about what you're seeing at the auction in terms of the pricing and numbers and the inventories of what's going on currently right there?
March 16th was the blackest day ever, I think, for growers in Holland. About 70% of all the flowers got dumped. There was nobody wanted to buy them. I mean, you have minimum prices for all items. Like, and if they go below the minimum price, it's not sold. It's not sold, and it really goes in a dumpster and it is destroyed because the next day we're going to have new fresh product. The growers are going to bring new product, and you cannot hold on to it.
Right.
So between I estimate that just in Ellesmere, where we are located, I would say maybe 5,000 to 6,000 auction containers were dumped. And on an auction containers, as an example, there goes 36 or 40 buckets of tulips. So, like,
Wow.
you imagine 5 or 6,000 of these containers. That's a lot of good quality flowers.
Yes.
And the auction responded to what happened, and they told all the growers the same day, listen, you can only bring 30% of what you brought to the auction last week. So the numbers have to go down in order to set like a price to see where the bottom is, where you don't have too much dump anymore. So from March 17th until now, every day the auction board and the auctioneers, they talk, okay, what can the market bear? What product line can we increase in volume? And right now we have quite some items that are back to 100%, and the majority of the items are back. Over 75% of the items are. A majority of the items are back over 75% of what they can bring to the auction. So, but it's heartbreaking if you hear the stories about a big rose grower. He was missing every day. He was missing every day 50,000 euros in revenue. So that's 50,000 euros of cost. I mean, the margins are not that big. And if you look at tulip growers, I mean, same thing. They were dumping the flowers themselves.
Right.
And I mean, we're in the middle of tulip season, so these growers are getting hurt a lot. This is their season, so they got to make their money now. So yeah, and if you look at numbers in sales, I got them right here. If I can put my binoculars on, the sales from March 20, that's a Friday, were half of the sales of yesterday, and yesterday was a Wednesday. That's not the busiest day. Friday is by far the busiest day. And if you look at the average prices drop, that's just on flowers. On March 20, the average price drop was about 50%. On a week later, it was about close to 30. April 3rd was drop also about 35%. Less revenue or less pricing. Instead of a dime, it was 7 cents, 6 cents. So yeah, it hurts the auction, but it definitely hurts the growers.
Right.
Are we
Right.
going? Yeah, we're going to bounce back. The flower business always survives. So
Yeah, I love that. And about surviving,
yeah,
obviously. So I know you touched a little bit about it. In Holland, it's very different than the US. The flower culture there is very strong, and there's a lot of small Dutch growers. What are you hearing about the smaller guys? Like, how are they handling this?
well, when you are a tulip grower, you cannot be a small grower anymore. I mean, if you don't grow, I don't know, 20, 25 million stems of tulips, you cannot be in business anymore. So it's like it's now like seasonal, but and they're professional growers. In the summertime, you have maybe more seasonal growers, like the summer flower growers, maybe more smaller growers. But in times in this period of the year, you have to have a greenhouse. You have to have a greenhouse. So you cannot be a small grower anymore. But what am I hearing? Yeah, I mean, they're talking to the banks, and the banks, have to come up with some kind of a plan keep them in business, because
Right.
I think a lot of companies may not make it till the end of
Right.
the year.
Right. Right.
But it's probably all over the world. The growers all over the world, they have the same problem. Whether you're in Ecuador or Ethiopia, or it doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm just looking through some of the comments. Someone was, when you're talking about the dump, they were saying they cried when they saw those photos. And then Melanie just said, "Love that you say that you and the flower business are survivors, Martin. Thank you. I love
We're
that."
all we're all survivors in the flower business.
Yeah,
What else can we do?
That's right.
exactly,
We're what we
exactly.
do. So
Can
Hey,
you?
hey, Vaughn.
Yeah,
One thing, if you don't mind,
go
Mark and
ahead.
I were talking a little earlier,
Hmm.
and so I've been a little bit on a rant in the last few days about being pissed off that the way that our flower industry in the States has been singled out to be really an industry that has been shut down. We've been deemed non-essential in most states, most cities, and it's bull, because they say the agriculture sector is essential, but growers don't have a place to distribute flowers. And I'm not saying we don't pay attention to CDC guidelines and to the pandemic. What I'm saying is, there's restaurants, there's mattress stores that can do business. There's a zillion different businesses that somehow are under the radar and they're doing business. And here we are. Really, of course, it's my industry, our industry. We are essential in so many ways, in my view. We bring so much beauty and so much hope to the world. So we are. One thing that was interesting to me in talking, I want to get back to that is, you said that the flower shops, Europe does have this, of course, this major flower culture, different than the States, and that they never closed. They were never forced to shut down like they have been in the States, and such a different way of looking at it. And so your challenges, I mean, I know the businesses went to nothing or very little, but they were never shut down the way they have been in the States here. So can you comment on that?
well, it depends per country. If you look at France or Spain or Italy, I mean, it's a different situation than what
Sure.
we have in Holland or Germany. And
Right.
also the French and the Spanish people and the Italian people are very much flower minded, but I mean, they just cannot stay open. So the situation is totally different here. And I mean, if you look at New York, yeah, I mean, they have to close everything. They got no choice. But it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, you just have to close. So it all depends on the situation, on how bad things are, and what your government decides, or what is your you have what do you have? You don't have a senator, but you got who's the boss in California?
The governor.
The governor. Okay, so the governor can decide. I mean, for the state we do this, or maybe the mayor can decide for the city we do this.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly right.
it's just up to them. I mean,
Yeah. Real quick, Steve had a question. He says, "Are Dutch growers getting any financial aid, like stimulus packages, being offered in the U.S.?"
Dutch growers. I don't know if the growers are getting any stimulus packages, but Holland is the second largest exporter of agriculture goods in the world, just behind the U.S. So I mean, it's a very important business for us.
Right.
And flowers. We do 6 billion euros of export just in flowers and plants. So it's a very important business. So yeah, I think there'll be some kind of help from banks or the government for growers. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it, but maybe smaller businesses or businesses that were not financial strong or were struggling already. Maybe the bank will say, well, this is it. But when you're in the core, when you have a good business and a good greenhouse company, what can the bank do? I mean, you proved yourself in the past, so why shouldn't they give you any credit or loan, or maybe the government can step in?
Right.
Yes.
Very good. Our next question is about freight. So just talking about freight, what is the situation now, and how do you see that evolving as time moves on?
The freight situation is that, I mean, I think the dust has settled on in the airline business. I mean, there's no passengers flying anywhere. I think all the passengers are being brought back to the US and to Holland. So I mean, what is the reason for a passenger plane to fly? Is there a reason? Who wants to fly? Who can fly?
Right.
What country will allow you in? So the freight capacity is way, way, way down. Are there any freighters? Yeah, there are freighters. I mean, there's limited space available. The market on freight, well, of course, went up. These guys have to not maybe take advantage is maybe not a good word to say, but I mean they're struggling anyway. So I mean they might as well get some more revenue of it. I mean, freight to Miami and to New York is double from normal, and now the prices of the flowers are cheap. That's kind of levels things down to normal prices what we can sell, maybe a little bit higher. But when the market goes back to a little bit more normal in Europe, I mean, then we might be very expensive for the US market when there is very low capacity on freight. And I think, and I don't know how you think about it. I mean, when our planes are going to fly again with all the passengers in it? Who wants to go on vacation to wherever? Who wants to be in a plane?
Hey, Martin, those are all great points, and that's really what we're going to be. The new norm is going to look different for quite some time. Excuse me. What if you could take a wild guess? If 100% was how many flowers were being shipped from Holland to the U.S., are we at 1% now? Are we less than 1%? Are we 5%? I know Mayesh hasn't had a shipment in a month almost now, at least 3.5 weeks since the big shutdowns we had, and we had to dump all of our fresh flowers. What would you say? I know it's very, very little.
I think we maybe we're just starting to get back up. I think Miami is bouncing back quicker. New York is not hardly doing anything, of course. But I think if we're at maybe I don't know 10%, 15%, together with all the other exporters to the US, I don't know. I cannot look in their books, but
yeah.
Right. So, I think Martin's frozen. We're having a good time.
It's frozen.
There we are. We're back now. Okay.
There we go.
It's one of those days, as long as I don't hang up on everyone, we'll be good. Then that's my worst episode I've ever had. I ended it in the middle of everything. All right. So we talked about freight, talking about pricing a little bit, or inventories. If you had to guess, Martin, how long do you think it's going to take for things to get back to normal?
Yeah, what kind of normal? We're going to have
our new normal. Yeah.
The new normal, I would say, when I look at CNN, what they predict, maybe August, things are maybe going back to a little bit more normal. So I think, the whole summer is going to be spent on taking care of each other and, be careful and, minimal. I hope the end of the year, September, that's my guess before we have maybe a new normal where it's maybe regular business again, but less.
Right. I have another question from Katie. She says, are you hearing that growers are having to stop growing for a season and that will affect their supply chain down the road? Have you heard of anyone that's doing that?
No, growers are just not gonna stop. I mean, there's business in Europe, and if I look at the numbers, the 10 biggest customers of Holland product are from Europe, right? So the number 10 I think is Austria, is like 2.3%. So I mean, there's always going to be a demand in Europe for flowers. And do some growers have to stop growing? Yeah, maybe because financially they cannot handle it anymore. Maybe they have to. Right. But the picture I sent you yesterday with me being in the middle of the tulip field, those are the tulip bulbs that are going to be produced next year. So bulbs are going to be there, and they're going to produce them. So they're going to come on the market. There's just no stopping. The peonies, the peonies another month. We're going to have the first peonies of the fields over here. You just cannot stop them. The rose growers, you cannot stop them. I mean,
If you stop, you're out of business.
if you stop, you're out of business. When you're a seasonal grower with tulips, another 3-4 weeks, we're gonna have tulips. That's a really big tulip season. Then it drops. Then you have a few growers that continue growing tulips, but then they have summer. They can recover and recoup, and getting maybe a vacation in their own backyard, and then that's going to be it. But they're not going to stop being growers.
Yeah.
Maybe some will stop. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
some.
We talked a lot about that on Monday too. Something else, another question that came in from Steve that's related to product. He says, are auctions receiving any products from Italy or other countries right now?
Yes, we are. Yeah, you can get Italian product. I mean, limited probably, and also it's not really interesting for them to ship it, because of the pricing. I mean, the price is very little. I mean, they got beautiful ranunculus, but they're not getting the money they used to getting. So maybe they.
We lost him again. Give it a second.
Eucalyptus coming in, they're still coming in. Limited. The African growers, they have a hard time also freight wise. They got big rose farms in Ethiopia and Kenya. There's hardly any freight to find, and if they send between 15 and 25% of their flowers, I mean, but 25% they got to stop, otherwise the price will just crash. Then it makes no sense to ship it. So they're pinching back their bushes there in Africa, and giving people a vacation, and laying people off. And that's what everybody's doing, and hoping for better times.
Right. Speaking of better times, Lori seems like she's doing pretty well. She says, I've been working 3 days a week. I have several deliveries on Friday, funeral work, and a birthday and anniversary flowers. She's feeling very grateful for this. She feels like Mother's Day is going to be better than expected. How do you all feel about this?
Well, I think you cannot take your mother or your wife to a restaurant. You cannot. What can you give at Mother's Day? There's maybe more need or more demand for flowers, than years before. What else are you going to give? You're not going to go to the beach. You're not going to go to the cinema. You're not going to go anywhere. You're going to stay at home. So
that's a very good point.
And our Mother's Day in the States, it just depends on how much freedom to operate we'll be allowed to do. That's really going to be the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But good for you, Laura. You go, girl.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 similar questions. One's from Penny. She says, when we all come back, how will we all know what's available? And again, this question always pops up. Do you see the cost rising like everything else? And similarly, Jackie says, my question is how will this current situation affect pricing for fall/winter markets? Can we expect any significant changes in overall pricing of Dutch imports? So what's available and how much is it going to cost? You have any predictions there, Martin?
Everything will be available. Growers aren't going to stop. We're not going to stop. We survived. My grandfather was also a wholesaler to Germany in the war. He went on a train with his basket on his shoulders, and he was going there. The flower business goes on. Everything will be available. Maybe a few growers will stop, but I mean, the seasonal growers like hydrangea is just starting. It's going to start in like another month. You're going to have full production of hydrangea. They don't have to cut them. I mean, you're going to have more antique colors at the end of the year. Is it going to affect pricing? Well, that depends. That depends also on the freight situation. What airlines are going to be flying, and what kind of rates do they have? So everything will be available. Will it affect pricing? Yeah, probably it will. It will. But it may also affect pricing over here. The starting cost, the buying cost, the purchase cost over here in Holland, maybe less. So maybe that compensates a little bit with the freight. I mean, maybe.
Right.
Who knows? Bet, do you know?
I do not know. We can only, it's a supply and demand business, and that's what's going to play out no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Patricia, she sent a lovely email with many questions. She lives in the US, but she is from Holland, I believe. And I'm going to roll over some of her questions to our next show that's planned for next Thursday with some designers. But I did pull out this tidbit for you, Martin. She says, for us US folks, it's so ingrained in our culture to surround ourselves with flowers in the office and at home. What can we learn from the Dutch culture in regards to stimulating consumers to buy flowers in general? That would then also support niche markets like weddings, events, funerals, etc., as part of daily life. Any thoughts there?
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I mean, over here, compared to the US, flowers are, yeah, like milk and bread and an apple, almost. And also the pricing is like that. I mean, over here you buy a tulip, you buy tulips maybe for 250 or €3 or $3, basically at like a supermarket. I mean, what do they charge in the US? That's like, I don't know, $7.99 or something like that. So I mean, it's the when they double on the margin, when it costs you $1, you sell it for $2. That's what you do, and that's when they sell a lot, and they sell. Uh, I'm going to have an argument with and with everybody in the industry about what are fresh flowers. People have to have a good experience. It's got to last a week, not a day. I mean, then if you have really fresh flowers that will last a week at the consumer, you're going to be in business a long time. You're going to have returned sales. If somebody comes in after one day and they have their flowers on the table and all the flowers are hanging all over the place, I mean, you're not going to buy flowers anymore.
No, 100% agree, Martin. We've got, and the place in the U.S. where people are buying daily flowers are at the supermarket, and unless they do a great job of product maintenance and not leaving stuff that has age on it out, then I've watched people buy flowers that are going to be dead tomorrow, and I try to coach them if I'm in the supermarket, but we got to do a better job in the States of that, of just that better experiences. So. But cultural, but cultural wise, I mean, you have centuries and centuries and centuries of flower culture, and we have so many markets where, again, you can't just find flowers on the street corner at those kinds of prices. We have different weather. I mean, so many people have great weather where they have so many great flowers in their garden all the time, including wintertime. So there's differences, and we're always trying in the States to push flower consumption in the States. So it's the age old question, and it's the age old exercise of trying to get more consumption in the States.
Right. Yeah, well, I think it's also when you ask why are you in flower business, what kind of answers are you going to get? In flower business to make money or to make people happy? That's two total different things.
Yeah.
So, give them a happy experience.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. I see Victoria's posting again about Mother's Day. She's able to operate by phone and internet, that type of thing. And then I have another question from Chris about Mother's Day, wanting to know if we can get a list of strong sellers for Mother's Day. What would be good flowers to be looking at for that holiday?
Good flowers, yeah. Peonies will be plenty available from France already. They are already there. What can we get? We can get cymbidiums. We can get the whole package. What we do every year: hyacinths, tulips, gloriosa, gerbera. You name it. It's going to be there. Whatever they want.
Right.
So we're here. The growers are growing. We can ship whatever they like.
Exactly.
But, we have to depend on the governor and on the mayor. What are they going to decide?
Very good. My friend Romero is watching. Hey, Romero. He says, good point, Martin. Mayesh is known for selling fresh flowers. Europeans know how to care for flowers after buying them. That's his comment there. Also, let's see. I see more things in here. I'm just going through the comments. I have another. another question we already kind of answered. And then this question's from Nuria, and I don't know if either of you guys want to answer this, if you want to pass on it, but she says, are we getting any help from the government, loans to business? How long will that take, getting money in from the government? I don't know if you guys want to talk about that personally for the company, or if you just want to talk about what you know about what the government is doing.
Martin already answered that. Martin already answered that for Holland, I thought.
For the farms, yeah. Pat, do you want to share anything
Well, I mean,
that you know?
I think there's the PPP loans. We're all working on those. The ones that are going to help us with employees and things, and we're working on these loans. But if you read the papers or see the news, they're trying to force a lot of availability of money through a very short, small funnel, and it's not been a simple process. So we've been promised that there's help. We're going to need help. But we need to see them figure out how to streamline the distribution of those funds, and so yeah, don't have the answer on that now, but we're applying for some monies, that's for sure.
So over here, the Dutch government made a deal that for your drop in sales, if you have 10% left, they will pay 90% of your payroll. Well, if you have 10% left, they pay 90% of the 90% that you miss, just of your payroll. So that helps, and then you can apply for like 3 months, and then at the end of 3 months, maybe they have to continue another 3 months, and after those other 3 months, well, I think then the money is pretty much spent, and then who knows? But I mean, it's a good plan, and they started it right away. They said, okay, this is what we're going to do. You can apply. We applied for it because our sales are way down, and they say they're already having money at some people. They're already giving out the money. I mean, we don't need it yet. We applied for April, May, and June. You can apply from March, April, May, whatever you think is necessary to apply for. But the government is going to give you 90% of your payroll expenses. So that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Very good.
Most people. I mean, for us, and then for us, we don't produce anything. We don't have to buy any flowers. I mean, the growers are hurt. They're hurt the most. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah. It's tough.
We'll see what happens there. Yeah, it's tough for them.
Yeah. I have this comment I wanted to share with everyone from Cameron. She says, appreciate you guys and your leadership during this time. The conversations that you are facilitating are so informative and provide a new level of education and understanding of the flower business. Thank you. We will come back stronger and better than before. I love that.
Good.
On that note, Martin, before we wrap up the show, do you have anything, last words that you want to share with everyone?
No, just stay safe. Don't do anything stupid or
Good advice.
You don't feel bad.
How about
I'll
you,
try.
Pat?
I'm sequestered.
Go work on your handicap.
Yeah, well, with a shoulder like this that's recovering from rotator cuff, it's going to be a little while. Yeah. But I would just say also to those that are viewing this show, just we got to keep the faith. We got to keep pounding away. We got to keep being relevant. We've got to keep trying to really show that we belong in the system of distribution and flower sales. That we can do it. We can do it safely, like restaurants are charged to do. We can do it safely, like I mean, look at the distribution centers. Amazon, no one can tell me they're sending essential packages all day long. A few for sure, but definitely there's stuff moving around, and we're going to keep pushing at Mayesh. We're developing, Yvonne. You'll see it on our social media. We're developing a media kit. We want to get out to the media. We want to tell these stories about how hurt our industry is through this. We want to at least get people to listen to, when there's ways to come out of this, that we're part of the ways, and we don't just continue to be kicked to the curb with you're non-essential, because it's not working. It's not right. And, I'm on I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore bandwagon. And I think we have to do that as an industry. We've got to tell these politicians that we have got an industry that needs to be protected. If you turn it off, there's nothing to come back to. And that's real.
Right.
So let's go. Let's go, industry.
It's very real. Yeah, we will be posting that today. We're working on finishing up the media kit, so that way we will get that out to the world. So guys, everyone that's watching, please look out for that. Share it with everyone that you know. I mean, even just your neighbors, just so they understand what is going on in our industry, because people don't get it. They don't understand that the years it takes from a little tiny seed to getting that flower into their hands at home, what that process looks like. And that's okay. But I think now it's our job to help people understand that and educate them. So yes, we'll be getting that out today. Look for that. And we would appreciate your help getting it out to everyone you know, your PR contacts, everything. So that way we can help bring light to our industry and what's going on. With that, it's a wrap, guys. Again, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Patrick, for joining me today. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Martin.
it. Thank you, everyone that's watching, for joining us. Everyone that's going to be watching the replay and listening to the podcast, we love you. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I do have 2 shows planned for next week. First up is on Monday with Charity. She's going to be joining me, and we're going to give a tour of our Mayesh.com site and just show you guys all of the e-commerce things, our tools that we have to help make your life easier. It's going to be a fun one. And also then on Thursday, I'm working on a panel of designers, and that will be on Thursday. It'll be a very good conversation. I have a lot of great people coming and join me. So as soon as I get everything confirmed with that, I will be sending out the information. And again, we are in this with you. We are going to get through these tough times together. And of course, in the meantime, if you have any questions, please shoot me an email or DM me. Use the contact form on our website. I will get all of that. And with that, stay tuned for our next show. And I wish you nothing but health for you and your loved ones. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Yvonne. Ciao, Martin.
Ciao, Pat.